Oh, they come up down here, don't they?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, here's a good one. Yep. Hello.
Should I, Tita?
Yeah, good. Everything all right?
Yeah.
Good, thanks.
Did you blurry?
In the house. My camera still doesn't work.
Oh, yeah.
I still don't know how to work the thing.
Yeah.
I'm just trying now.
All this modern technology.
Yeah.
Was he went up
No, he's coming up tomorrow.
All right.
We're gonna head out walking tomorrow afternoon, probably.
Oh yeah. Where are you going?
Well, Rhith-dafarn we normally go. Either the circle or I'm not sure yet, but that's usually where we go. That part of the world. The weather's meant to be good.
Yeah. We went down there. Went all around. That place that you've done up.
Yeah.
We also noticed that they are going to build some. Well, not build. They're going to change the stables in Rhith-dafarn Castle into dwellings.
Yeah. The stable blocks are they're basically intact. So it's no surprise they're going to try and do something with those. The shame of it is they're not going to do anything with the old greenhouses and generator block. They're sort of falling apart.
Yeah, right.
But so you walked along Castle Drive.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the track behind the castle there, because that's where they posted the planning notice.
Oh, okay. It was on a gate.
Yeah, it was on the gate at the front.
Yeah,
we could see this big long building, and we were just saying, "Oh, this would be great for housing." And then we came across that planning application, so we thought, "Oh, well, yeah, that's what they're going to be doing." So, how's your week been?
Well, same as normal, really. Work, and that's it. There's not much else to do. I walk in the evenings. That's about it.
So, what are you working on at the moment?
Ash dieback. The ash trees have got a fungal infection that's arrived from China, just like everything else.
Oh no!
And I'm taking down the dead trees on the roadsides, the A470 and the M4. So that's
okay. Yeah.
What about you lot? What have you been doing?
We went down to Owens. Not yesterday, day before.
All right.
Went for a walk around the bay.
Yeah.
Over enough.
It was pretty windy, but okay. We went up to. Yeah, it was quite nice today, wasn't it? We went up because all the coffee shops. Not all of them are closed, but a couple of coffees we've had recently have been rubbish. So we bought an iced coffee in Morrison's. Went up to the castle, sat down, and had the coffee. The coffee was lovely, and it was quite pleasant sitting there watching everyone wandering around. We were there for a couple of hours, weren't we?
All the ducks and the swans and the geese and all of that, looking at the castle.
Yeah, they all got goslings now. I haven't been up there for a while, but there should be loads of them.
Quite a few. Everyone's up there feeding them.
Yeah.
Then you got into whether that person's suited to that.
We were watching people watching, basically, looking at all the different, and it was nice to see whole families out.
Yeah,
husband and wife and the kiddies, which you probably wouldn't see on a weekend. You probably only see one half of the couple.
Yeah.
Just nice to see all the families out there and about with their bikes and their little prams and their kiddie bikes and what have you.
Yeah, there are certain things about this lockdown that have been quite good, but there's far more people walking out in the countryside, cycling, all that sort of stuff. The trouble is that there are plenty of people who like the way the country have changed, but I just can't help thinking that if people are going to do all this stuff, it's got to be voluntary. You can't just make them live like it's the 1950s.
No, but I think there might be half of the people that stop and think about things, about how this has changed their life and what do they want to do going forward. And the other half just won't think about it, and they'll just go back to how they always were anyway.
Yeah.
But this week I got an old pallet and turned it into a planter box, got a couple of pieces of timber and put it up and stained it all green, painted it, and then I thought, need something else. So I created a stencil and then painted a flowery thing on the front of it in a different colour. So that's ready to put some herbs and.
Do you think you can? Can you walk outside with this? I don't know whether it'll still.
That'd be good. Yeah, let's have a look at it.
Yeah, I can try.
Yeah, let's have a look at it.
The internet will still hold its signal out there.
That's still working. Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's fantastic.
So I put a piece of timber under here.
Yeah.
And you can see a little plant in the bottom.
Superb. Oh, so you've gone out and bought herbs?
No, that I already had that one. That was just a lavender. But I've got a friend. I'd made a couple of face masks for a friend, and she says, "Oh, they were fantastic." She said, "Would you like an oregano plant?" And I says, "Oh, yes, please." So she's going to give me an oregano plant, and that'll go in there, and I'll get a few little. I might get some geraniums or something and put them in there.
Yeah.
So just something to do. I just thought, all I could do with I'll make a stencil. Looked on the internet and put a piece of paper over the top of the laptop and just traced around with a pen.
Right.
Because the printer wasn't working. And then used a sharp pin, traced around and some little scissors and cut it out like a stencil.
Great.
And
it looks good.
Got the paint and something to do.
Yeah. Well, I've put a new door on the garage. Needed a new door.
Oh, yeah.
I did a bit of DIY. Put some fencing up for Kainwan.
Oh, yeah.
This morning.
Where is she?
She's on another. Actually, I was meant to tell you. I think she sent you a message, but she's on one of these calls with some of her friends, so she can't make it at 8.
Oh, okay.
They're doing some sort of pub quiz night or something.
Mm-hmm.
Where Ewan is, I don't know. I haven't spoken to him. Not since this morning.
Yeah, he said he was going to be coming on when we saw him the other day. But yeah, it was really good catching up with him, walking across the barrage to Banana.
What's he been doing down there?
Just working, I think.
Yeah, not a lot. He's having a big whinge about the lockdown, time for it to end.
Yeah.
I sort of agree with him. Let's see if I can send him a message.
He usually sends it on Messenger.
He does?
No, Kainwan does.
No. I'm sending something to
he sends it to Ewan just to let him know that we're online.
Yeah. Ewan. Come on.
So don't really know what he's been doing other than work. He had a meeting with some. He said he sort of he had drinks with his mates at work. We thought, oh yeah, where was that? But he said it was online, so they all had a beer or something and sat and had one.
Right, okay, yeah.
He said the bosses didn't come on, which was quite. But all his other mates, he said that was good to catch up with them.
Yeah. No, I've been wondering what he's been doing. He won't tell me whether he's meeting up with friends. I don't know. But
I don't think this really. I think more online.
Because I suggested to him to come up this weekend, and he said, "Oh, it depends. I'll see what I'm doing." I mean, what on earth could he be doing? I mean, there's just limited things to do.
Yeah, well, I thought he was going up to see you this weekend, but tomorrow's a holiday too, so maybe. Yeah,
he said he might cycle up tomorrow in the morning. Either that, I'll pick him up. We're going to go walking tomorrow afternoon, but no, I did wonder what he'd been doing today and yesterday. But,
okay. Yeah, well, I'm getting used to. It feels like being retired. It's taken a bit of getting into it.
Yeah.
It's great when you have 4 or 5 weeks off, and it's like a holiday, and you
Yeah,
get stuff done.
yeah.
And then you've got to start thinking, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah.
But the garden's looking really tidy.
Oh yeah, I've sorted the lawn out. I've been getting all the weeds out the lawn, front lawn and the back lawn.
Yeah.
Hardly any now, and yes, seems to be making a difference.
So- He's been going out every day with a little fork, and actually,
Yeah, picking them out.
Yeah,
I think that's just about the only way you can do it, really.
yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, I know the whole country's doing DIY at the moment. I've been to B&Q and Screwfix in the last week. And the queues are huge. They're ridiculous. Hordes of people doing DIY. Gardens in particular because of the weather.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's just been amazing weather. It's been
fantastic.
Because we've been away for the last few summers. We haven't been able to catch up with a lot of these things that we've been wanting to do.
Yeah.
So now that we've had all this fine weather, we're catching up, like painting the shed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this week's going to be especially frustrating because the weather's fantastic, and this would be the hay festival. We would have gone on Thursday of last week.
Yeah.
And this coming week we would have been up there for the whole week.
Yeah.
The forecast is for weather in the temperatures in the 20s. It would have been superb.
Yeah.
And at this stage it's difficult to know why it couldn't have gone ahead because there are plenty of countries that are either haven't gone into lockdown at all or they're now coming out of it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit premature.
Well, we're starting to question everything.
Yeah, and I saw a YouTube program the other day. Some professor, one from Oxford, and there's another one in the States, and they both think that social distancing, using masks and the 2-meter rule and not having large crowds, is as effective as a lockdown.
Yeah,
and of course, it would wreck the economy. And you wouldn't have had all the problems that you're beginning to get now, because I haven't been able to play golf for years. Oh well, it seems like for years, a couple of months.
No,
and it's still not open.
No,
but it'll be open on Tuesday. We've booked. We got all the.
I've been putting pressure on them all week, and so have other people. And he's been having a go at us as well, the owner. But in the end, I think the pressure worked.
And he got out there on a mower himself and started, because he'd furloughed all his staff. So, of course, he had nobody to look after the course. So he's had to get out there. He's thrown grass seed and fertilizer around, and then there was no rain. So it burnt all the greens. So he's having to water them all. So he's had to wait for a week for everything to get back on, on track.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've booked.
Yeah, we've booked every day next week.
From Tuesday through to Friday.
Oh, they're opening next week, are they? Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So you can either go out on your own or with a family member. So we're just for the two of us.
Well, I don't know when the next announcement is from Drakeford. I think it's Friday, isn't it? But
I'm not sure.
I'm hoping he's going to announce that you can drive to do things. I'm going to try and get up to Herefordshire or somewhere like that, or perhaps even the coast.
Yeah, all the ladies at golf, they've booked like Tuesday when it opens, and you can only play between 10 and 5. So they've booked 10 o'clock through till 1 o'clock. Every single one in the golf club, 10 minutes after each other. So they will actually get to see each other. So it'll seem like they're playing together.
But driving, the actual driving, I can't see how that's a problem. You're in a car.
No, can I? No, can I don't see what the difference is between me walking locally and me walking in Herefordshire. I'm in a sealed metal box.
Absolutely not.
Getting from here to there. If anything, I'm less likely to encounter people up there because it's more sparsely populated.
Yeah.
If they... we don't live in an especially densely populated area, but it is a town after all. So you're more likely if you walk out of your front door to bump into people or, walk near people. But if you live in a city, it seems to me that it makes sense to drive out of the city to go walking.
Yeah.
And yet in Wales, you're not allowed to do that. It's absurd.
No. Crazy.
But I would have thought the bay was heaving, wasn't it, today?
Well,
Oh, I
2
don't-
days
Oh,
ago.
yesterday, sorry.
No, well, it wasn't when we went up on Friday.
Oh, look,
That was really windy.
It was
yeah,
windy.
yeah. But I imagine, when the weather's good, it's pretty busy at that nature reserve.
I'd say we pass more people down the bay than we do when we walk around here, though.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
One day we went for a bike ride along that canal, and it was
That's a canal up
that
the
was just
Riska.
that was terrible. There were people all over the place. You could hardly not bump into them.
Yeah.
And walkers are not very. Walkers and cyclists on the canal don't seem to mix too well.
No. But I'm not particularly worried about coming into close contact with people. The 2 meter thing seems to be fairly arbitrary, but even walking within a couple of feet of somebody, if you're just walking past them, the risk is probably pretty small.
I'm not worried one little bit.
No, and I'm not particularly worried about this virus anyway.
No, I'm not either. But they're talking about schools. Oh, it's not safe, the poor children. And I think, well,
Children.
what are you worrying about the children for? You should be more.
Well, they're basically immune to the bloody thing.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. But Ewan and I and the other people who are in our group, we were having a discussion about this, and Ewan and a friend of ours, Colin, was saying, people are idiots, they bought into this lockdown thing and now they're terrified to go back. But I actually think they're behaving perfectly rationally. I mean, the government and all the media have told them this thing is deadly. And so to try and persuade them now to go back to their normal lives, they're going to wonder, why it's okay now.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed.
Well, the other thing is that people who have been furloughed are now getting paid for doing nothing, and they're getting all the stuff done at home. They're having time with their families. They're doing all the stuff.
Happy.
So why go back to work when you can stay home and get paid for it?
No, it's the perfect storm. You have an immensely successful propaganda campaign to persuade everyone that there's a deadly virus abroad. You then incentivize them not to work by paying them for not working. And then you start asking them to go back to work. It's ridiculous. It's never going to work.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's obvious is that it's a lot easier to come out, to go into lockdown than it is to come out.
And for the government to say to, companies, okay, from August, you're going to have to start contributing, I think that was totally the wrong way to do it. I think what they should have done is said, okay, from August, we will pay 50% of the wages, which is a totally different way of looking at it. Yeah. Because then the people would have wanted to go back to work to get money, rather than saying that the employer has to now contribute.
Yeah. Well, I actually don't think. I don't think there is an easy way out of this now, because the economy has essentially been unproductive for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
It's not going to become fully productive again for months. Because even if you lift the legal aspect of the lockdown, people aren't going to go back to doing what they used to do very quickly.
No, not immediately.
So even if you're conservative about this and say that there's a quarter of a year where there's been almost no economic activity, that's 25% shrinkage in economic activity. Yeah, that's just unbelievable. We've never had anything like that in centuries.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time anything like this happened was the Black Death, in terms of a slowdown in the economy. I mean, the virus doesn't worry me. What worries me is what's going to happen in about 4 or 5 months' time when the government stops paying for all this stuff, and companies who haven't had any revenue for months on end are going to be obliged to pay for their own staff. They're just going to lay everyone off.
Yeah,
and then possibly file for bankruptcy.
Yeah,
and there's there
are businesses out there that will never reopen.
There's a couple of industries that are going to find it very hard to recover. The aircraft, the flights, holidays abroad. And that's going to take at least a year. Well, you can forget about this season.
Yeah,
because they've got this quarantine period now in and out of Britain.
Yeah.
So people are not going to go abroad.
No.
Might be a good thing. Put pressure on the European EU when all their southern European countries, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece, have further problems when none of the British arrive for, this summer season. So that'll be quite good in some ways.
It will. Yeah. But I mean, the trouble is that the interesting about tourism is it's like any other bit of the economy. The biggest part of the sector is actually domestic, even in countries like Spain. The majority of people who go on holiday in Spain are the Spaniards, and they haven't been able to do it. It's the same in the UK. We get a lot of visitors to the UK, but the majority of the people who are on holiday in Britain are Brits. If you go to Pembrokeshire, East Anglia, all the holiday hotspots of Britain, of which there are loads, they haven't made a single penny this year so far, not one.
No.
And a lot of those businesses they're marginal anyway. I mean, their profit margins are tiny. They just about get by from year to year. That's how they make their living. So this will decimate places like Pembrokeshire, Cornwall, and everywhere else that depends on tourism and leisure. And the effects of 2020 are going to be devastating. I think far worse than the virus.
And these hotels in West Wales, even if there's a tremendous surge for people to go down there in July and August because things have opened up and they can't go abroad, they haven't got the room to accommodate it.
Well, no, that's it's not like they're selling oil or something. It's not as if they can sell more oil. They've still got the same number of
beds. That's it. They fill them up every summer because their season is about 5 months at the most. Yeah. And next thing they know, the season's been reduced to 2 months.
Yeah. No, they're going to make enormous losses this year. And
I think someone else on. Oh, well.
Hiya.
Only 22 minutes later, one.
Well, look, I can't. I have to work on video conference all day now. Spending my spare time on them isn't my idea of fun.
Why is coming in 22 minutes late better for you?
Well, because I didn't even know it was happening.
You didn't. You forgot what you said to us on Friday.
Well, exactly. I saw you on bloody Friday.
Yeah. You see me too often, then, yeah.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, the only person in Britain who's enjoying the lockdown.
Nice to see.
Well, the lack of contact isn't bothering me at all. It's the pubs being closed that is irritating me.
Well, this is like a pub, isn't it? Haven't you got a drink?
Well, I have got a drink, but no, it is anything like a pub.
So have I. It's like a pub.
Very good.
I've got a cup of tea.
Yep, there we are.
Are you looking forward to going to Hereford with Cledwyn?
Well, we'll see. I don't know. It depends what the weather's like.
Of course he is.
Forecast is good.
That Drakeford may open up travelling this Friday.
Oh,
having said that, Drakeford he's just going to follow England. He's just going to pick up a few things that the English have done, I think, and just be a bit behind the English.
Oh, you're going to be a lot behind the English schools. They're opening next week. Drakeford won't open them for months.
He might open in July for a bit.
Oh, it'll be for a matter of weeks at most.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest thing with work that people are thinking about now is, well, what happens with all our babysitting? We can't go back to work because we've got no one to look after them. So they've got to open up a lot of other things so that they can have their children looked after, and whether it's school, whether it's grandparents looking after them, and all the grandparents the older people we've spoken to are scared. It's different, having people around. We're not.
I don't think they appreciate how effective their propaganda has been. These parents who've got to send their kids to nurseries or whatever, or they might struggle, but let's suppose there are mechanisms to do it. A lot of them will choose not to anyway. They'll say, I'm not sending them anywhere. equally they'll say, I'm not going out. So you'll find there'll be a substantial percentage who will stay at home, even in September.
Well, they're not paying, furlough or whatever, forever.
Well, no, they've got to stop the furloughing, but I mean, I don't think that'll stop those people from saying, I'm not going in. It'll cause all sorts of issues then. Because the workplaces will say you've got to come in, and then there'll be legal challenges, and it'll just be a mess. Then they'll have the unions supporting them. You'll have some unions, like the teachers' union, actively telling teachers not to go into schools. It's going to be an absolute nightmare.
But then again, we may get rid of all the lazy types, and you get the hard-working people that get into work, and there's just a big shake-out that way.
Well, it'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Because there's going to be no shortage of people looking for work. I'd like to see some of these employers say, "Oh, okay, then goodbye, find someone else." But I think with this weak government, they'll probably allow these people to stay in, on some sort of benefits or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's not for the business owners.
Well, you look on Boris's government as weak, yeah?
Very weak. The one area he's shown some strength is this around Cummings. If he had any sense, he would have fired him. Once you've drawn up those ridiculous rules, the least you can do is abide by them.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dominic Cummings is on ground. I think he should go, but he's pretty essential to the Boris government. As I say, Boris is a big picture type, He can see the large picture. He can decide what strategy is. But when it comes to detail, he's rubbish. He relies on other people to do it. And that's Dominic Cummings.
From what I'm hearing, Cummings was the architect of this lockdown, and a large percentage of the cabinet are opposed to it. Yeah,
I heard that he was against it.
He was initially. He was in favour of herd immunity, and then he changed his mind after he saw what was going on in Italy.
Huh.
So, no great loss. I've always been a bit skeptical of these sort of pseudo-intellectuals who come out with all of these details and all of this, and then have no common sense, like, traveling 200 odd miles in breach of their own rules. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. Traveling in a car is hardly that dangerous. But if you create those ridiculous rules yourself, then the least you can do is adhere to them.
Yeah.
And he could have.
But the only issue with that line of argument is that because the rules are so poorly drafted, nobody actually knows whether he's in breach of the rules or not.
Well, yeah, but he's the one who drafted them.
Yeah, well, we don't know who drafted them.
Well, his government.
My point is that it's certainly not clear to me whether he's in breach of the rules.
Well, it depends how far he went. I mean, his story is he drove up to drop his kids off, was it, with his parents because he was falling ill.
Yeah.
That sounds fine on the face of it. But apparently there's loads of holes in that argument, like him being seen in cafes or some areas, shopping around.
God, I haven't heard about that cafes thing. What's cafes? I
don't know about cafes, but he was seen in other places in the area. It's all a bit, sort of Stalinist. All of these people saying you've seen him here and there, But again, you create that sort of environment where you promote people to snitch on people around you, then there's some sort of divine retribution going on here, as far as I'm concerned. So,
well, I don't know that, but I mean,
the name of Putin touches.
Yeah,
because it may have been the neighbour of his father, his parents, but it's the curtain twitches that perhaps need to be named.
Well, yeah.
A bit like me, I've got a little house around the corner. Somebody ran the council and complained, oh, she's put a big structure on the back of her house. So, because they send a letter, I ring up. They say, we've got a complaint. And I says, oh, okay, but I think, I've just read your rules and it says you're allowed, a conservatory, you're allowed a porch, and as long as it's under this square meters and blah, then that's okay. I said, I've just got a little porch out the back so that the tenant can have a cigarette outside instead of inside and not get wet. She said, okay, well, I'll just send you the information, the rules and regulations, which I knew anyway. So somebody had seen this go up. They saw me put a new fence that had got blown down in the storm. So I had to get a new fence put up so they could see everything that was going on, and they could see this little porch at the back, which they thought, hey, that wasn't there 6 months ago. So they ring the council to complain. Now,
and Kathy thinks they couldn't have seen it if the fence hadn't been blown down.
Because I went up behind on the side. You can't even see it. I went behind the property. There's a bit of a park, and I stood there and I could see, only just see through it. You can't see it. So, you've got people complaining and whinging about every jolly thing around the place.
Yeah, you have got, the curtain twitchers.
Yeah.
I didn't realise there were so many of the bloody people. I actually started to dislike the people in this country. I also think that there's a large number of people who've just become very lazy. I've no doubt a lot of them enjoying this.
They are.
Yeah. The way out of this bloody mess.
Yeah, Kathy said that today. I'm quite happy doing this.
I said it's, you have 4-6 weeks. It's like, okay, there's your summer holidays. But
look, I mean,
now,
there
I have to do.
Yeah, but there are things about the lockdown that you can enjoy. I mean, the roads are a heck of a lot quieter. That's a nice thing.
Well, you shouldn't be out driving according to the rules.
Well, that may be true, but nevertheless, it's something to enjoy about the lockdown.
Well,
actually, you can drive. Even according to the rules, you're entitled to drive for certain things.
Well,
we went to Cleveland earlier, and we went down to Morrison's, and we thought we'd like to go out for a coffee, but all the places don't seem to have a very nice coffee at the moment. So we went to Morrison's. We bought 2 iced coffees from out of their fridge area, and then we walked over to the castle. We found a really nice spot with a seat.
Yeah.
We watched the ducks and the geese and everything, sat in the sun, and enjoyed our coffee.
Oh, nice.
So,
well, yeah, that's quite nice. I mean, actually, if I was in charge, which I was, people like you, Kathy, it'd be fine. I'd be saying the over 50 shouldn't work for this period. And actually enjoy it. It'd be, we're looking after the economy for you. Have some fun. Now it's everyone. Oh, right. Well, you could try and enjoy it, but at the end of this, you can look forward to some real misery and hardship.
I suppose we're fortunate because we've got a lovely backyard. We've got a huge conservatory. We've got a front yard. The property here is big enough for us to be able to do lots of things in it. I can do sewing, I can knit. We can both watch different TV programs at the same time. Whereas the people who are stuck in a block of flats, that's where it's hard.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got a whole city in London where you've got the police going around shouting at people who go in the parks. And the alternative is, even if you've got a place worth $1 million, some tiny little flat. With some families living, half a dozen people in there or whatever. So it's, there's no way to live. Wouldn't want to live in a flat in London anyway. I think that one that got burnt down a few years back was proof of, that whole idea is not good. But
my friend Shanna, she lives up in Blackwood, and she's still working. So for her, it's no different. She goes into work 1 day a week, and then she works from home the rest of the time. and on weekends, she's busy doing stuff that she'd normally be doing. So for her, life hasn't really changed that much, except that she's got the hassle of working from home, and she says it's easier working at work because all the facilities are at work that she needs the information from. So everybody's got a different story.
Yeah, well, I think it hasn't actually changed my work that much, but well, so I'm able to do most of it from home. There's a lot I can't do, but you can kind of get around those bits enough to tie me over. But I wouldn't mind betting for every person like me, there's several who aren't able to do anything, and then businesses in the service sector in particular, losing all of their money. That's life savings.
Yeah. What's going to happen to pubs? Christ.
Well, they're going to loads closed. Yeah.
I know, but they've been out of business for months and months. I mean,
and they're having to dump all their beer because it will have gone off.
Yeah.
Well, that's already happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the local pubs here, the Wyth, you could go up and fill, whatever you wanted. You could go up and just buy beer by the, gallon.
Really?
Yeah. Because
the
local chip shop, that was 6-7 weeks ago that happened, because beer goes off. Cask beer goes off in about 3 weeks. But the local chip shops are selling potatoes. The one on Trakenneth Road, they were selling 10-kilo bags of spuds. So all that's already happened.
Well, good businesses adapt and survive, but even they'll be struggling. But pubs, some of the best pubs in the country
you
are
can't
the
adapt
small
to being forced to close.
Well, you can, because what you see is a lot of these pubs is opening, but just selling takeaway beer and selling takeaway food and stuff.
But that's again, you can't. Their core business is shut, and there's a limit. As takeaways, they're in competition with every other takeaway that's allowed to open. There's a finite amount you can achieve by adapting, as you put it.
Well, yeah, I was thinking enough to tie them over. I mean, when I thought when this started, it might be a temporary measure for a month or so, supposedly to save the NHS. They've stopped saying that now.
Oh, yeah.
I thought, fine, they'll survive. But yeah, I'm not even sure those ones that'll adapt will survive now.
No.
It's, we're looking at 3 months. Well, they're on small, short, slim margins anyway. I was thinking some of the, and especially the pubs in London, I don't know how they're going to reopen. It's destroyed our entire country's economy. Thanks to Cummings and Johnson. So
a lot of people should have been a bit more daring, I think. I mean, there were places selling garden centres that were close to supermarkets, and the supermarkets are selling plants. Well, I think they should just have opened. And if they got closed down, they should insist that the supermarkets shouldn't sell plants. This indirect opposition. Now, if all garden centres opened, it would be very difficult to close them all. And, it could very well lead to court cases and, competition rules being broken. I think people have been a little bit too...
Yeah, but actually, court cases have been brought, and the courts have been largely, supplicant to the government. They've not allowed most of them. I mean, there's one that's being brought. Some guy called Dolan, that actually is going. I think he's going through the High Court this week. But on the whole, these cases haven't been allowed.
Yeah,
it's been very difficult to bring in. I mean, everyone has basically fallen into line, even our legal system.
Well, the other thing
about disobedience to these rules is And especially, I mean, I don't know what it's like now, but certainly in the early days, the state was pretty determined to enforce this lockdown, and it's a criminal matter. I mean, the legislation they were using, this Public Health Act 1984, makes breach of it a criminal matter. So it wouldn't just have been a civil matter in the courts; they'd have brought criminal charges against these people if they'd opened. I mean,
They
the
would
police
have
have been
also
itching
brought
to bring.
criminal charges against the people who bought the goods as well. So
Yeah.
they did double whammy.
Yeah,
What I never got was the police were threatening. In fact, they did in a few instances. They were going through people's shopping bags in
Shopping, yeah.
supermarkets. Well, they wouldn't get in the supermarkets to take down that stock. So for some reason, it was legal for the supermarkets to sell a lot of this stuff, but illegal for them to buy it. I mean,
well,
how
actually,
can
it was never illegal as it happens, but the police, the police, as ever, got the law wrong.
Why were
Yeah.
they going after the people who were trying to buy stuff rather than the supermarkets in any event? I don't know. It's well, I mean, the police in this area haven't been terrible. I haven't had any problems with them, but it's
What's essential for one person is not essential for somebody else.
Well, I've discovered that when they reopened, when Mark Dreyfus said golf courses are reopening, they could have reopened several weeks before, because golf courses were never on the list of places that needed to be closed. The only thing that was stopping them from staying open was the rules about travel. You were only meant to travel, well, no, initially you weren't allowed to travel anywhere. You had to take exercise around your house. And then when they changed it to you were able to travel locally, golf courses, if they'd read the rules properly, would have been able to open and open the car parks, as long as they stuck to all the other rules. Now, none of them did that, apart from Bargoed.
all right.
Bargoed opened about 4 days earlier than everyone else, because they realized that when he said golf courses were never on the list and the local travel was always allowed, so we haven't actually changed anything. We're just saying you have the green light to go ahead for singletons to play golf. So they opened straight away. And my golf course, because I was going up there, there's a footpath across Ridgeway. I was going up there with some clubs and playing golf. And the owner was there one day when I did it, giving me a right telling off, you mustn't play golf, blah, 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 blah. Well, next time I see him, I'll say, the only thing that's stopping me playing golf was you. Because there was nothing in the Welsh government's rules that said that golf courses had to close. The only thing that was stopping people from going there was the traveling. And I was walking across a public footpath, hitting a golf. So it's you that stopped me from playing, no one else.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't blame these businesses. It's not just Welsh government. The UK government's communications throughout this has been beyond abysmal. I mean, they're coming up with policies on the hoof, and they're not communicating the implications of these policies for businesses. It's an absolute fiasco.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ed was saying they're handing out money hand over fist without any checks. They're just, giving anyone who fills in these forms loads of money.
Yeah. It's been a boom for people who are on the fiddle, and there have been some pretty big. Well, you're back now, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yep, just topping up.
Yeah, there've been some pretty big fiddles, I think, as well.
Well, if I was, after a quick fiddle, I would have done that. It sounds like, a pretty straightforward way of doing it. Create some sort of, or use someone else's details to claim a load of money. I don't know. It's sounds pretty straightforward.
Anyway, what else is going on apart from this coronavirus thing? It seems to dominate every conversation at the moment. I wonder sometimes if there is anything else you can talk about.
Well,
Next to nothing.
nothing else going on, is there? It's,
Yeah.
Everyone's in lockdown.
Yeah.
Well, I did show Cledwin something that I made. I got an old pallet. I stained it all green. And then I got some timbers and I've turned it into a planter. I made up a stencil and I've created a little flowery pattern on the top to put little pot plants in outside.
All right. Very
Yep.
good.
Done something.
Well, I found a couple of things out this morning.
Mhm.
It turns out that this,
SpaceX.
there's SpaceX, yeah. In a couple of days' time, they're sending American astronauts up to the ISS. And incidentally, the ISS, you can see it tonight at 6 minutes past 10 if you look at the east. If you look east to west. No, sorry, west to east, it's traveling. The ISS. And SpaceX is sending a couple of American astronauts up there on Wednesday. And that'll be the first time that America has put men in space since they retired the shuttle in 2011, 2012, something like that. So, yeah, that's a big thing. But, yeah, the thing I was going to go on about was this viral lab in Wuhan in China has actually been working on COVID viruses that they've extracted from bats.
So you think it could have come out of the lab too.
And in addition to that, the virus seems to be so well structured to fit human proteins to lock on. It's like a jigsaw. It's got to sort of fit right in. It fits in so well that they think, and that normally happens after a little bit of evolution. They're thinking that if it was actually extracted in a lab, and then they did do some experiments with human tissue to see how it was evolving, then it would probably quite quickly have evolved to the state that it's in when it became active. So
I've read some American epidemiologist who thinks that this virus may have arisen in a lab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is the case that there's some sort of biotech company based in Wuhan where this outbreak started.
Yeah.
It would also sort of explain the fact that, although having said that, it probably doesn't need much explanation, but for a normal country, it would explain why China was so reticent about the thing in the beginning.
Yeah.
And but there again, China does that anyway.
Yeah.
They don't like bad publicity.
And in addition to that, the lab was set up in 2003 as a joint venture between France and China. Because because all these viruses seem to start in China, they wanted labs to be set up there with all European safety ways of doing things. So they poured a lot of money into it, and it was going to be a joint venture. But in typical Chinese style, after a couple of years, France were pushed out, and it is a full Chinese operation. But the French foreign minister who signed the deal is guess who?
It's
Michel Barnier.
Barnier. Right.
Michel Barnier.
Well, we'll never know. I mean, they will have long covered up whatever that lab was up to.
You might, but the fact that the virus came out sort of fully evolved does make you think that some experiments has been done on human tissue to see how it would evolve. Because that's what they do, apparently. They will extract the virus from an animal. They'll then put it onto human tissue, see how it evolves, And if it evolves to fit, then they can see that this could be a future virus. But because this one came out after the evolution to actually fit the human protein that it was going to attach to, they seem to think that it's gone through that lab process and then it escaped.
Hmm.
Well,
Apart from this virus, what else has happened?
Oh,
And then
yes.
you went and spoke about it.
And then the WHO, they have a couple of, I don't know what they call them, special people who sit on their board, who are celebrities, quite well known in various.
Industries.
Yeah, I forget what they call them. But anyway, they invite them.
Ambassadors.
Yeah, something like that. And one of them is a well-known Chinese folk singer. And she is well-known. Fair enough. But what it doesn't say is she also happens to be the wife of Xi Jinping.
okay. Yeah,
So
well, that's the nature of these communist states, isn't it? It's all nepotism.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think there might be I'm hoping that the USA will take a lead in the backlash against China, because Australia's taken a bit of a lead, and look what they've done to China. They've banned all their wheat and their beef, and they're just basically saying, because Australia has asked for a full investigation into how the outbreak happened by independent, and they don't like that, so they've already sent a message out to anyone else who's going to say the same thing, which is don't mess with us, otherwise this is what will happen. But the one country that can stand up to them is the USA. So I think
Trump's been doing that for a long time. So I mean, I'm surprised he actually hasn't put more tariffs on them more recently, or at least they haven't made the headlines. But yeah, when we came to sign our own trade deals, the first thing he did.
He's saying the right things, but he isn't creating a coalition. He isn't getting Britain, France, the EU, Australia, or Canada. You've got to have a concerted way of dealing with them, I think, not individual countries. I'm all for individual countries doing things, but this is one case where a concerted action against China is the only thing that I think will work.
Yeah.
The problem is, I mean, obviously Trump aside, all of these Western leaders are all globalists. They believe we should open up trade to places like China and all that. And China, great, that's great from their perspective, it's like they'll sell us cheap tax, But changing the EU's mind on that, for instance, and even people like Boris Johnson might not be easy. And people have got to manage their expectations as well. We currently play, historically, quite little for a lot of our goods. You've got to get used to pay more.
I mean, when one
stuff made in this country.
One material change is that Huawei is no longer going to be a part of our 5G network. They've announced that in the last fortnight.
Well, I think that was inevitable.
It wasn't inevitable.
Making Hinkley C, wasn't they? So was it a French company? I think it's both.
No, that's fallen apart as well.
No,
was it?
Well, that's
They can build it.
If it's still going to be built, it's going to be built with different people.
Yeah. I think China will take a hit. Obviously, I'd like all that recriminations to happen now. It'll probably be done a bit more subtly in terms of people naturally changing their spending habits and these economies slowly doing it. China's primarily an export economy anyway, so in a world where people become more, there's going to be less global trade. I suppose they're going to be at the forefront of, any of the hit that comes. So, I don't know. I think it'll be fine.
Well, I mean, when one material change is that when one material change is that
Yeah.
Yeah. It's they'll suffer. But the trouble is, we're all going to suffer because we all the world has taken this ridiculous response.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's gonna be
I think there's also going to be quite a lot of political turmoil. I mean, there's already lots of people seeing in this an opportunity to push their political agenda. The far left certainly are. And I've heard people saying, oh, well, perhaps we should, have greater state involvement in our lives. Perhaps we should, think more seriously about the wackier elements of the green agenda. I mean, I've read articles in what are fairly conservative magazines about how we probably should fly less, and I just think there's going to be a lot of change that's going to result from this. And whenever you get lots of change, is really good. I mean, turmoil, and all of this for a disease that's marginally more serious than the average, and actually a lot less serious than when the flu is really bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
can you remember 1968, 69? Can you remember the flu that year?
Yeah, of course I can. Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong Kong flu. I mean, that was substantially worse than this COVID outbreak in terms of the number of people that died in absolute terms, and certainly in terms of the number of people that died per capita. And yet, the Western world didn't commit economic suicide in 1968, 69.
No.
But then, as a society, we'd come to some sort of accommodation with the flu by then. We're familiar with it. We'd had it for centuries. That's been the real problem. COVID is new, and all new, threats are magnified. It's a matter of human psychology. But I do think our government should have known better.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, to what extent was the flu in 1968 and 69? To what extent was it in the news?
Well, it was in the news a fair bit because Hong Kong flu is something that I can still remember now. But 68, 69, I was doing my A levels then, and no, it was not uppermost in my mind. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
in fact, I can't remember anyone.
I wasn't uppermost in the mind of almost everyone in the country.
Well, your grandmother died then. Did she die of that?
Who?
Your grandmother.
No, she died in 1972, I think, or 71.
Oh, yeah, it was after that. One of them died when you were at university, though, didn't they?
No. My grandfather, on my mother's side, he died just before I was doing my O levels in 1967. So only a couple of months beforehand. And I sat the O levels in June, so he would have died around about April 67. And then his wife, she died quite a bit later, 1970. Right. I know because when she died, I was on holiday. And my mother I'd left, a number for her to contact me. And she didn't contact me. When I got back, my grandmother had died. She'd been buried. And I said to her, well, I would have preferred to have come back because to come back and she's buried, it's, just never felt right. The burial is, when I've been to burials of people who've been close to me, it has been like a bit of a closure. You go there and say your last goodbyes and all that. People may say it's nothing, but I don't believe that. I think it's a big thing.
For some people.
Yeah. Well, it was for me. But that was around about 71. Yeah, 70. No, it might have been 71.
Yeah, it was that Margaret Hopkins.
No. It's not Margaret Hopkins. It's Margaret Treherne. Yeah, Margaret Hopkins.
Margaret Treherne, yeah. That was December 71.
Yeah, December 71, she died. My mother's mother died a bit later.
Yeah, September 72. Yeah.
Ah, right, wasn't much later. And her husband died in 1967.
Yeah, yeah. Clifford. 66, actually. Well, it was December 66. So, yeah.
Oh, was that December 66? Oh, there you are. I said it was a few months before I sat my O levels.
Yeah, 1950 you were born, wasn't it? So this is actually your third pandemic. There was the Asian flu in 57, which I knew nothing about, but I read about the other day. That one was more serious than this.
70 this year in November.
Yep, you thought, well, the way we do it now is we count pandemics. So it's your third, it's my first.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember the Asian one.
No, well, you were 7. It's really, but that killed it quite a lot more than this.
I can remember another one where we had to have a cube of sugar.
Polio.
Really?
Polio, was it?
Vaccine.
I don't remember any of these.
Yeah, polio. Yeah, everyone was going for their, you had a sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had
drops on a lump of sugar.
Yeah, and there were quite a few people whom I knew who had polio.
Yeah.
There was a boy in my class who had polio. He had irons on his leg.
Yeah.
And a bit later on, Wayne Rolls, my mate, and myself went out with these 2 girls. And the one he went out with had a leg that was a bit more thinner than the other. She'd had polio. Didn't have leg irons on, but it had affected her leg, you know.
Yeah.
What was her name? Her name was Kathleen something. She was quite pretty, actually. But yeah, you could see her one leg was a bit. So yeah, the polio thing was around quite a bit. And smallpox was still a killer because I had my smallpox vaccination, and smallpox would have killed me because the vaccination put me out for a week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for a week I was in bed.
Goodness, I
and that was the cowpox.
We had smallpox injections, but no, all it did was give me a sore arm. And I thought, I'll be smart. I don't want a big scar on the top of my arm here. So I stuck my arm out and I got one down here. But I didn't think that was my right arm. So, of course, that's the one I write with. So my sister and I, we both had it done there so that it wouldn't be seen. And it was, a little bit painful for the week.
No, I was out.
Unless everyone else got them on there.
No, I was out for a week.
Oh, it didn't affect me.
Yeah. And I was in about 1960.
I was about 14.
Well, it was just when I went to secondary school.
Yeah.
I just gone to secondary school in 1962. I only been there a week or so, and I was out for a week.
Oh, we must have been about 5 years later.
Of course,
this is the problem. You know, this generation, you've had effectively a generation of people since then who aren't accustomed to the realities of life and death. You know, that's quite a good thing. But, it's, from time to time, these illnesses will come along. I'm not saying you shouldn't do anything about them, but they've lost all sense of proportion. It's like irresponsible to try to save every
life. You know, people I've talked to don't value life so much. They've experienced so much by the time they're 20 that, what's there to live for now, whether they come or go, is neither here nor there in some respects.
Well, you've got to have proportion about it. I just say, life is about weighing up the risks. So, every day you go to work, you cross the road, there's some risks. You go out on a bike, there's a lot of risks there. Every time you go on a road on a bike, there's risks if you go swimming, all of this. As far as this illness is concerned, for my age group, I'd put the risk in that kind of category. Going out and riding a bike is that small.
Actually, the fact of the matter is, Bud, the risk for somebody your age is actually much smaller. It's much riskier riding a bike.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Well,
the problem is that humans aren't very good at assessing risk on this sort of scale.
No.
I mean, so to even to conflate the risk of cycling, of dying of COVID-19, is to get it out by about an order of magnitude. I mean, how many people under 45 have died of COVID? It's about 200.
Oh, yeah, it's about 300. But if you were to
No,
look
the
at all
300 figure, Spud, is under 50, isn't it?
I don't know. It might. Well, let's say 200, but it is that's 200 or 300. Every one of those will have had. So yeah.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
it would be better for the oldies if all the young ones had it. So if there'd been a lockdown for older people and the virus had spread very, very quickly amongst everyone under 40 or under 50, then lockdown, getting out of lockdown would be very easy.
well, actually, that's effectively what's already happened. I mean, I remember when herd immunity was first discussed back in early part of March, and they were talking about 65%. It turns out that for herd immunity to be effective, you only need an infection rate of somewhere near 20%, about 17%, before the virus can't replicate itself.
Yeah.
I'd have to be over 50, surely.
What?
Anyway, it'd have to be over 50, I would have thought.
No, the evidence that's coming out of Germany, China, and lots of places, if you care to look, is that once you've got about 17% of the population with the virus, its replication rate isn't high enough to sustain it. So the population of the virus just declines.
Yeah,
because
as you say, whatever it is, London's already there for certain. I mean,
Yeah.
there have been registered a handful of cases a day now. That's not because of any sort of people lockdown. I mean, first of all, people aren't even adhering to that anymore. I was out today, there's loads of people around, and especially in London. It's impossible to have lived in London the last few months and not be in contact with people who got the virus. So it just goes to show what a whole, what a bunch of lies that whole lockdown thing is based on, really. But but they're going to paint the picture now that it's worked and all of this, and we won't know for another year or so because they'll never roll out those antibody tests. That actually, 30, 40, 50% of us have already got the antibodies in our system. We needn't have locked down for nearly so long.
Yeah.
Or that we need to lock down at all.
Yeah, that's what that professor was saying. The number of people who have had it, who have had such mild symptoms that they haven't bothered thinking that it's a disease or anything. It's almost like a hangover. That number must be very, very high. Otherwise, you just cannot explain the way that the disease initially spread very, very quickly and is now slowing down quite quickly. And the only way you can do it is by saying that there is a large amount of immunity in the community. So
yeah. I mean, if it did come out of a lab, we're kind of fortunate in a way that it is, it's not quite so deadly. Mind you, I would argue if it was more deadly, it wouldn't have spread so quickly, I suppose.
all they're saying is that normally when they come out, they take longer to readjust to be very virulent in humans. It takes a couple of generations of the virus for it to mutate into something that fits this protein very quickly, perfectly. And this one did it straight away. So that's why they think they did some experiments on human tissue and it had already gone through that process of evolution to fit it. That's what they're saying, and it seems to fit with some of the facts, Seems to fit better than just having jumped from a bat into a pangolin, whatever a pangolin is, and that was then eaten, and then, that seems, especially as there is such a large center in Wuhan that is actually doing research on bats and on COVID. So
it's a bit of a coincidence, yeah.
Yeah.
Too much of a coincidence. Yeah.
Anyway, there you are. 9:10.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Well, I'll put a film on now then. So,
What are you going to watch?
What?
What are you going to watch?
I don't know. Put Netflix.
You haven't decided.
No.
Will you, Cledwin?
I'm going to carry on reading my book.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're running out of movies to watch, so if you know of any good ones.
No, I've exhausted Netflix and all those. There's nothing on them now.
We
Really.
usually watch a movie in the evening, not during the day. And
Are you interested in New Scientist, Cledwin? I tried it with you one.
I don't mind New Scientist, but I having a load of back issues. I've got enough to read. I've got magazines piling up here. I'm reading a book at the minute, The History of Western Thought. I'm going to try and finish that.
Right. I'm taking Scientific American as well.
Have you? Oh, God. I've got loads of magazines here. I have The Spectator, The Countryside. I don't read all of those.
Yeah, well, our coffee table's getting a big bow in the middle.
Yeah,
that's from Wyth.
Well,
Are you interested in which?
No, so I want the coffee table cleaned
definitely
up.
not. Take them all down to Ewan's place. He's got an entire loft. You could store your magazine collection in his loft.
They'll be going in the
No,
bin.
you need to just give them to somebody who wants them.
I'm quite willing to just post them to someone every week after I've read them.
Oh, yeah, Ewan, post them down to Ewan.
I don't want them.
Right, okay. Right, well, we'll see you again next weekend.
Yeah.
Are you coming up tomorrow, Ewan?
Yeah.
Right, I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Have a good week.
Right. Yeah, you too. Oil.
Yeah, no start.
No start.